Greetings and salutations, Robeyverse. We are back with another video review to talk about the ups and downs, mainly the ups, of the new Cooler Master NR200P Max Mini ITX case, or all-in-one build kit. Now, Cooler Master's SFF answer to the NZXT H1, which, if you know anything about that one, again, comes with a PSU, it comes with it anyway. Let's dive in right here, right now on Robeytech. Cooler Master has always been known to make great products ever since their inception in 1992. Well, you know what? I remember 1992 very well. I was a kid in high school, living in Japan, taking French classes because I thought it would get more dates. And learning French in Japan. That was a good idea, Robey. Back to the Cooler Master NR200P Max. Right, that's where we are. That's the focus here. When you think about Cooler Master, everything from the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo CPU air cooler to the Cooler Master Masterbox TD500 mesh with a plethora of other cases, keyboards, mice, PSUs, and various CPU coolers, these are just some of the products that Cooler Master has tried to perfect over the years. And the NR200P Max is no different. Or is it? First, let's look over the specs of it. Unlike its little brother, the NR200P, the NR200P Max, you get one option of one color, and that's black and gray. I mean, it's two-tone, but maybe down the road we'll get like that flamingo pink or Caribbean blue or sunset orange or that nightshade purple color. But for now, can we at least get a white version too? Come on, Cooler Master. The NR200P Max does give you a couple options with the black and gray, as you can choose a tempered side glass panel if you want to show off your build, or a perforated solid steel panel if you just want to flat out hide your build. You may want to hold off on choosing RGB parts if you're not going to choose the tempered glass side panel. You could have a little bit of glow, but you know, you're not going to see the whole thing. Now, the case is made out of your typical SGCC steel mesh and ABS plastic and comes in at 377 millimeters by 185 millimeters by 292 millimeters and a total volume of 18 liters or just under 5 gallons. All exterior panels can be removed for easy installation, and there are dust panels on the bottom, left, right, side, and top as well. The front I/O panel has simply two USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, along with a power button and a reset button. No real need for USB-C here, as it would just add another cable to the cable management here. The MSRP of this case is $349, and there is a reason for that compared to the $130 to $140 cost of the NR200P, depending on what color option you choose. The Max version comes with a pre-installed and pre-routed 280mm AIO that has two 140mm Cooler Master SickoFlow PWM fans, which is all pre-routed, ready to go, and hooked up. It also comes with a 3rd gen Cooler Master Pump / CPU block and supports AMD sockets up to AM4, Intel sockets up to LGA17. That's right, I said LGA17. That's the new Intel CPU Alder Lake that is scheduled to come out very soon. So everything's good to go there, you've got plenty of cooling, and it's already pre-ready to go. But Robey, still, $349, isn't that expensive if you only get a 280mm AIO in it? Well, Cooler Master probably thought the same thing and decided to also include a V850 SFX power supply. Yay! So your 3080s and your 3080 Ti's, good to go in this case. Cooler Master also said, you know what the heck, let's throw in a PCIe Gen 4 riser cable for the GPU as well. And the world rejoiced. What's the reason for all of these parts included? Well, Cooler Master wanted to make an out-of-the-box solution for next-gen systems. Next-gen systems are becoming more and more power-hungry, and the included solutions such as the 280mm AIO and the 850-watt PSU are examples of just that. So the AIO retails for about $130, and the power supply $150. That Gen 4 riser cable, add another $60, bringing your total to $340. And at $349, that means that you're getting this case for a whopping $9. If you think about it, that is a small price to pay for a mini ITX build that they are giving you 3 parts already pre-installed, and they are doing a good job of it. But that's a little bit of a spoiler. So it comes out to be a pretty great deal. Now, you can switch out the parts for whatever parts you want, but that kind of defeats the purpose of this case and this whole kit. So maybe just doing an NR200P might be a better option if you're not happy with the parts they're pre-installing. Now, motherboard support for the NR200P Max fits a mini ITX board with a max size of 170mm by 180mm, so your Asus ROG Crosshair, which is a mini DTX board, will not fit in here. But other mini ITX boards, such as the Asus ROG Strix X570 or B550i, should fit just fine. The rear of the motherboard tray also gives you easy access to M.2 should your board have this slot on the backside for the motherboard, like we did in ours, and we made it RGB even. Woo woo! For cooling support, as we talked about earlier, they give you a 280mm AIO pre-installed, but you can fit a 240mm AIO top should you choose to swap it out. The bottom can fit one 120mm fan with a 3.5-inch HDD at the bottom, or two 120mm fans without a 3.5-inch HDD down there. Clearances for CPU coolers, such as air coolers, gives you about 67mm, so your best bet is to put in a low-profile cooler such as that Noctua LN9A if you want to go air cooling for your CPU. Now, if you're going to go and start changing parts like air coolers and AIOs, then I would recommend not buying the NR200P Max, but instead the regular NR200P, given that the price is really kind of justified with all of the additional parts that are included, but if you're not going to use them, what's the point? I mean, yeah, it's got that cool like little access tray, but I don't know if that's $150 cool. For GPUs, you can fit any 3-slot GPU with a max dimension of 336mm in length, 160mm in height, and 75mm in width. So GPUs such as the Asus ROG Strix 3080 will fit in here. Just be mindful of the cable management if you're using a 3x8 pin GPU. The GPU installation is pretty awesome in this case, as the GPU panel is removable, which simplifies the process of installing the GPU. Now, power supplies are your typical SFX or SFXL PSUs with a max clearance of 130mm. I can't stress this enough. If you are buying this case to replace all the parts in the case though, then you shouldn't buy this case. Buy the Cooler Master NR200P, which we've done a full review on and you can check out right here. But Robey, I have storage I need to put in there. No need to worry, as the Cooler Master NR200P Max has 3 dedicated 2.5-inch mounting locations, along with 2 optional 3.5-inch hard drive mounting locations, depending on your hardware configuration. And there you have it. All of the specs for the Cooler Master NR200P Max. This is a great case on paper, especially when you're talking about including a 280mm pre-installed, pre-routed AIO, an 850-watt SFX gold-rated power supply, and a PCIe Gen 4 riser cable. But given other out-of-the-box DIY SFF kits like the NZX TH1 and the Height Revolt, how is this one to build in? Well, let's take a look. We're going to start with the 5600X. Let's have fun. I'm putting a 5950X in this. Phantom Gaming ITX motherboard. The WD Black, these are the new ones, the brand new SN750 SEs. These are PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSDs, and this is that Lexar kit. This is 32 gig kit at 3600 megahertz. We're using the ASRock. This is their Phantom Gaming RX 6800. Anyway, guys, these are the parts that are going in there. Not a lot because a lot of stuff is already included, so we're gonna get started here in just a second and see how the clicks are. Here it is right here. The build is in process, ladies and gentlemen. So cute, our little motherboard. Here's our 5950X installed. There it goes right there. Okay, let's test our clicks. Oh, that was lame. It's the new WD Black SN750 right there. Look at that, this is new. RGB-ness. Okay, let's get this inside of our case. What do you guys say? Okay, got all the cables out. Okay, here, there we go. Okay, now, put this over here. Now we got room to install our motherboard. Teeny tiny motherboard going in. There we go. Okay, that's in, that's in, that's in, that's in, that's in. I did it. I was like, where's the CPU? It's pre-wired. It's right here waiting for me. It's like, hey, I knew you'd have to be up there, so let's just make sure I'm up there. Cool. A-I-A-I-O. There we go. So now this is ready for a GPU. There we go. Oh, look at that. That's really nice. Solid. Okay, there we go. Put this back on. Okay, there's the back. There goes. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. As excited as I was for this product, I wasn't expecting it to be this easy. I mean, you can see my original thoughts on the NR200P in our Ultimate Case review, which I referenced earlier. And as big of a fan as I am of the NR200P, it has the tax that comes with working with an SFF or small form factor case. Now, when they installed a lot of the parts for you, like the PSU, AIO, fans, you expect things to be easier, but not a ton easier. Color me surprised, whatever that looks like, when the NR200P was honestly an absolute delight to build in. The AIO installation and having very little to plug into the MOBO with the pump and the fans, the PSU which use sleeve cables instead of the tough plastic ones, and also the fact that it has the ability to remove the horizontal mount on the GPU, which you can in the NR200P, but instead you have the removable bracket in the back that makes GPU installation an absolute breeze. I mean, unless you have a very off-standard MOBO or some other component that is stretching the norm for a build of this type, you're going to have cables in all the right places when you need them. And it is borderline magical. They're all routed to about where they need to go and not forcing you to remove any of the pre-installed bits during the process of building. There was literally one point during the stream where I paused because I was stunned at how well the build was going, given just how well placed the cables and everything were for the build, just out of the box. Now, that's not to say if you were using some weird non-standard layout board you won't have issues, but for the vast majority of folks, it's pretty much plug and play. This would be a great first SFF build like the NZXT-H1. Might I say even better than the NZXT-H1, especially for someone who wants to dive into for the first time if they wanted. Just one thing worth noting is that you may want to invest in some of those 90-degree adapters for your GPU power to make the GPU installation not only look cleaner, but also keep things from sagging and actually just make the whole process a whole lot easier. Okay, so the build experience is great. How about the thermals? I mean, there has to be some struggle there. Well, let's really flex this thing and see if it can handle this configuration. I think if you can do this, then you can basically do anything. So for our thermal testing, we used an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X and the AMD Radeon 6800 GPU. If we ended up with good temps in this case, I think it's safe to say, outside of like next generation chips and GPUs, that this case can pretty much handle anything you put into it. So for thermals in our Cooler Master NR200P Max using an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X in a negative pressure situation using the included sickle flow fans that come with the custom 280mm IO, it was as follows. For the CPU at idle in the open case scenario on our 5950X, we were sitting at a nice and comfortable 39 degrees with a 2-degree jump to 41 in the closed case scenario. When we turn up I to 64 and stress the CPU though, we see things hopping up to a nice, but yet still low 74 in the open case scenario and a 10-degree warmer 84 in the closed case. No issue at all, and really good temps for an SFF build. So what about the GPU? Well, at idle, we see the Radeon 6800 sitting at a cool 51 degrees in the open case scenario with a 3-degree jump to 54 in the closed case scenario. We start our myriad of tests to stress the GPU though. We get to see temps jump as high as 58 in the open case scenario and 10 degrees up to 68 in the closed case scenario. So wrapping thermals up, this AIO and case can pretty much handle anything you pop into it, with the only true limitation here being the size issues for the GPU and power, aka 3090. We also were not using the lower fan placement, so if you wanted to pop in some low profile Noctua fans as intake on the bottom to get more fresh air for the AIO and GPU, you could do that and probably get quite a bit more headroom for potential overclocking, which is pretty much awesome. Now, if you were going to add the tempered glass side panel on the NR200P Max, it is worth noting that you will see a significant jump in GPU temps, and lower fans are going to have to be a must in this case. Even with those lower fans, you may see a jump as high as 20 degrees in the closed case scenario because of how much the panel is going to starve the GPU for air. Now, if you want to learn more about this, you can check out our NR200P Ultimate review, which I referenced earlier, and we also have linked down in the description below, if you just want to see the results of the testing that we did on this very scenario. Now in this case, the only thing that has changed is the cooling for the CPU, which given what we put through, can handle anything that you could put in it right now. Now guys, I would be remiss if we didn't put the build we put inside of the NR200P Max through its paces just to see how it did in gaming. We don't get a lot of AMD cards, and you know what? Threw them in there just for you guys. So here it is. First up, it's our single-player RTX experiences. Remember, this is a Ryzen 9 5950X and an ASRock AMD Radeon RX 6800. For Tomb Raider, running at 1440p with DLSS off, and the highest preset, we saw an average frame rate of 122 FPS across the runs we did on the game. For Metro Exodus, also running at 1440p, running with no ray tracing, no DLSS, we saw an average FPS across our runs of 32.6. This game is heavily optimized for NVIDIA, and man, does this show that. So what about some AMD tuned gaming experiences then, Robey? How does this manage those? Well, let's talk about Dirt 5 running at 1440p with ultra-high graphic settings. We saw an average frame rate of 105.5. Totally solid right there. Lastly, in rounding out the single-player experiences was Borderlands 3 running at the highest graphical preset. We saw an FPS average of 80.74, which is great for smooth gameplay. Well, what about MP games? Well, for Apex Legends, running on low visual settings at 1440p, optimizing for competitive gameplay and high FPS, we saw an average frame rate of 234.7 FPS across our multiple game sessions. Awesome. For Call of Duty Warzone, also on low visual settings, 1440p set for competitive gameplay and maximizing FPS, we saw 191.4. And finally, Fortnite, again, 1440p, low visual settings, we are crushing that 360 FPS barrier, coming in at a nice and very, very fluid 404 FPS. Not only is this great in the thermals department, but if you were looking to do a similar build inside of your NR200P Max, you would not be disappointed in the gaming department either. So let's close out this review. I mean, it's pretty much all roses for me when it comes to the NR200P Max from Cooler Master. The build experience is solid, if not borderline magical. The thermals and cooling are very capable, meaning you can get a lot of power in this tiny little enclosure. It's also worth noting that the AIO is top mounted, which was difficult in this case before, so even Steve from Gamers Nexus' biggest complaint about this case has since been solved with this newest addition to the NR200P family. Though you do lose the ability to horizontally mount the GPU in this version, I think what Cooler Master did here to create what is essentially a turnkey solution or just a very easy solution for SFF builders is actually pretty dang awesome. And I am happy to give this case the Robeytech seal of approval and suggest anyone interested in SFF builds take a look at this potential solution. I mean, heck, even from a value standpoint, with all that this case comes with, it's pretty amazing. But what do you think? That's the question. Are you looking to do an SFF build? Would you now consider using the NR200P Max? What would you put in it? And was there anything that surprised you from our review? We'd love to know all of that down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we either post a video or go live right here on Robeytech. Also, make sure to join our awesome Discord community over at discord.gg/Robeytech. Come hang out, talk about builds, talk about all the other tech stuff. Also, check out robeytechdeals.com and robeytechstore.com where you can find the best deals and all of our awesome merch. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.